My tourism family, I greet you well. You've made a wise decision to arm yourselves with as much information as you can regarding the robust health and safety protocols that have been established to tackle COVID-19. In these unprecedented times, knowledge is power, and your cooperation will help us to get back to normality sooner than later. Each module of this training program targets a different subsector of the tourism industry. And although some guidelines are generic, there are also sector-specific requirements. I encourage you to absorb the information as much as possible and to share with those you know, particularly the ones most impacted by these unfortunate circumstances. Your health and that of your guests is top priority. And while we want to keep everyone safe, we understand that reopening the sector is crucial for all our sustenance. This sector has been a lifesaver for so many of us, and my ministry and its agencies want to continue to contribute to that well-being. As you are aware, the global COVID-19 pandemic halted the sector for a few months. This resulted in many of our tourism workers being displaced and uncertain of their future. With this in mind, we impressed upon you to take charge of your own health and safety and those around you as we traverse this rocky road. It is said that tough times don't last, but tough people do. We are tough, we are resilient, and together we can get through this pandemic. We have learned many lessons that have paved the way for a new tourism. And with your help and in time, we will be a sector like we've never been before. Learn all you can from presentations and make the necessary changes as you go back into your workspaces. Pleasant viewing and stay safe.
Safe and resilient tourism has consistently been a foundational element of Jamaica's tourism industry. Tourists and Jamaicans alike have high expectations for Jamaica as a top Caribbean tourist destination. And these two statements, they're very profound because Jamaica is known for a top destination and we want that to continue. Jamaica is known as a safe and resilient tourism destination because COVID-19, yes, we are now in the process of living with COVID-19, but we've also had major disaster, other elements that would have affected our tourism product, but because we are resilient, we've bounced back and we're back on track. And the same with COVID-19. COVID-19 is here. We have been locked away for a while, we have been home locked away for a while, but we have to come out. We have to coexist with COVID-19. We cannot stay at home forever. We have our families to feed, we have our bills to pay. A lot of us have our motor vehicles to pay for. So we have all these expenses. Life must go on. Number one thing is though that we need to protect ourselves, so we need to practice safety. That's the first thing, we have to be safe. We're inviting persons back into our country. We're inviting them back in our space. We don't know the status of some who are coming here. Neither us who are dealing with each other, we don't know our COVID-19 status. But we just have to try and be as safe as possible, protect yourself and others around. So we have to bear that in mind as we go along and continue to make Jamaica a top Caribbean tourism destination. So the protocols that we'll be looking at, they will take into account the health and well-being and safety of our tourists, ourselves as the employees, and the communities that we live in. It will seek to reduce the risk of the exposure to COVID-19 while promoting an enjoyable and relaxing experience. So we still want our visitors, we still want our guests, we still want them to come and experience Jamaica and enjoy it and relax. But things are going to be different. We have to do it a different way. So we are going to be focusing on safety first. Protect yourself first of all. You are foremost, and then also. So while we do things, it's not going to be business as usual. Safety is a key thing. All right, so the protocols are designed to support consistent standards across the industry, and in terms of developing this protocol, Ministry of Tourism, the umbrella agency, but we have other agents, so the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Jamaica Tourist Board, Tourism Product Development Company, Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, and the other sectors in the tourist industry who would have contributed to developing this protocol. So once this protocol has been developed, it went through several stages, it's now approved, and so we as TPDCo, the tourism training team, rolling out this sensitization just to make you more aware of what's happening. Now, I must also say some of the things that we're going to speak about, you have already been practicing some of them. Some of them might come to you as a reminder because you have already been practicing some of them. Some will be new, and we're going to be looking at things in a different way, but some we have already been practicing. So the goal of the Ministry of Tourism, the COVID Health and Protocol, is to strengthen Jamaica's resilience. Remember, we are already resilient, but to strengthen the resilience to COVID-19 and safeguard us, the stakeholders within the tourism ecosystem, including us, the workers, the communities, and of course, our tourists who visit our shores. Some of the goals and objectives: provide guidance to enable consistent recovery protocols. And I also want to say, some of the protocols that will be shared here this evening, they're not cast in stone. COVID-19 is evolving. 2 months ago, a month ago, we would not have had so many persons sitting in the room because we are now at a different stage where we can practice a little more in terms of the physical distancing and be out now. So it's just to show you that it's evolving. So whatever we have as the protocols here, over time, this will change. Some of the rules, some of the protocols will be relaxed as we go over time. So we are taking it step at a time. All right? But as we say, consistent. So we are being consistent. We're sharing the information, and as it evolves, as it changes over time, you will be updated. Support health and economic risk management across the tourism industry. Provide that framework to drive quality assurance of implemented protocols and regular monitoring. So it's that framework that we're providing because each entity has to develop their own protocol. So this is the broader protocol, that the general one, and then it works as a framework for you to use this to develop your protocol because every entity has their protocol, right? How you will work, how you will survive, how you'll operate during this COVID-19 pandemic. The goals and objectives, again, maximize effective recovery by facilitating and improving the flow of information and coordination. So we are trying to share the information, as our executive director says. We are sharing the information. So we try to sensitize you to share. And as the information comes, as we have more, then of course we will share with you as well. Enhance and coordinate recovery intelligence gathering and information sharing capabilities. So we're doing all of that. Now, he spoke about the 8 key health and safety elements, and this is mainly what the protocol will be around. So 1, sensitization stations. And throughout this session, you will hear a lot mentioned of sanitization session. You'll hear a lot mentioned because, of course, we know COVID-19 is a health issue. So sanitization is key. Face mask and our personal protective equipment, this is a must for us because we have to protect ourselves and our surroundings. Physical distance, and as you can see that here, 6 feet apart, physical distancing guidelines for workers and visitors who have not traveled together. So we'll go a little bit more in that. Clear, frequent, and consistent messaging. So sharing of the information to the communities, to the tourists, to the employees, because awareness is key. The more you know, the better you'll be able to handle certain situations. So awareness is key across the country. Technology enablement. And I just want to speak a little about that because with COVID-19, we have moved into use of technology even now on a greater level. Some of us who had our smartphones and we were just using it to make calls, to send calls, or probably to send a message or two, we now have to start utilizing the smartphone smartly, right? So we have to use it now, put apps on it and use it, because we are moving away from paper and anything that would spread the virus. So technology is going greater now, all right? Real-time monitoring and reporting, so the temperature checks, the monitoring and all of those has to be done real-time. Also, rapid and clear response. Clear protocols when care is necessary for any worker, visitor, or community member. So step by step, how you would deal with somebody who is COVID positive and the different stages that you would go through. Training, and this is for the entire tourism industry, to help ensure workers are equipped to manage protocols based on their role. Now, this is a part of it, the sensitization, but also training as in your organization. You also have to do your training with your employees, because when you've developed your protocol, how you will operate your organization, then you need to train your employees so that everybody is aware of what's happening, everybody is on par. So training is very important at all levels. Now, as we look at the transportation sector, this protocol document, it contains information on the requirements for ground transportation. It includes, so there are others as well, hotel-operated shuttles, rental vehicles, tour buses, tour operators, contract carriage. The responsibilities, this section outlines the recommended responsibility structure for managing your transportation protocols, and we also look at your hotel shuttles, your car rental companies, tour bus, and tour operators, how you operate and the responsibility that you will have. COVID-19, there's a safety point person, what we call the SPP, and this is a minimum of one employee at any time during the opening hours of the business must be a specifically trained and designated COVID-19 safety point person. And you might ask, but I am not a company, I'm just one driver has a bus. So this one driver on the bus, no, you are the SPP. Right? However, if you're employed to an organization, then the organization would have a SPP. So if you're employed to a rental car company, then they will have the SPP. Sole driver for own and driver for bus, you are your own SPP. All right? So the SPP should conduct regular spot checks throughout the property and observes protocol being enacted. So if you are with a bigger company, then you do your spot checks. If your own vehicle, you still do your checks within your vehicle to ensure that the protocols are being enacted. Because even within your own vehicle, there are certain protocols that must be practiced now that we are living with COVID-19. The SPP should also serve as a point of contact for employee and guest complaints, and is required to document, investigate, and triage complaints. So as the individual, you also have to, if there's anything that you would have observed, any persons, responding as if they have symptoms of COVID-19, then you would have to take the necessary steps and report as the need arises. Now, also, if you're an organization, depending on the number of employees, if it's a large organization, they might also want to appoint this person as a SPP. That's their full-time job while we're living with COVID-19. Or the person could take on the role, dual role, their regular role, as well as the SPP appointment. And as I say, it depending on your size of your organization. If an owner rents out multiple taxi carriages to several individuals, then they would be considered as the safety point person. So I'm renting out the vehicles. I am now the safety point person, because if anything, I need to do my spot checks. I need to know where you are, what's happening. If there's anything out there, then of course you will contact your safety point person. In the case of a licensed independent operator, they're expected to be aware of the protocols, enforce protocols in their vehicle, and carry the necessary supplies. So as I said before, even in your own vehicle, there's a protocol that has to be observed, and it must be enforced. Now, when we speak about supplies, we're preparing out there, and as I say again, you have to protect yourself. You must protect yourself. We have seen what has happened in the last, since March 10, we have seen what has happened where one person would have gotten infected by COVID-19, and it could affect an entire community. It could shut down an entire community. It could shut down your family. So first thing first, we must protect ourselves. So we must have the supplies that is required. Now, some of the supplies that will be, or some of the things that we'll be sharing, some of the supplies might seem costly to some of you, but they are alternatives. They are alternatives. So we work with what is feasible, what is affordable, what you can manage, but protect yourself. So masks is one of them. Enough for each staff member, for each shift to have at least one. So if it is disposable, you should have it for at least one per shift. Other supplies, alcohol-based hand sanitizer, 60% alcohol and above. Spray disinfectant or wipes, that as well. Hands-free garbage cans and covers. Now, there will be some vehicles large enough that you can have a step-on garbage can. There will be some vehicles that doesn't have that space. So if it is a smaller vehicle, then it means that you use your garbage bag, seal it, and dispose of it as soon as you can. Signage, stickers, ads, hanging tags regarding protocol requirements and awareness of symptoms and Ministry of Health and Wellness contact information is a must. So we need to have those signs that will say, that will indicate your protocol requirement. Please wear your mask, sanitize your hands, those kind of things, and the contact for reporting. So everybody should know the contact information for reporting. The Ministry of Health website, the 1888 Love number, toll free. People need to know that. Whether you or your tourist, everybody must know. Monitoring logs also, because you also need to record and document. You need to monitor, you need to log where you go, where you took them, who did they get, what kind of activity that they were involved in. So should the needs arise that you need to get that information, you have it to say, I took them to this property, they were involved in this attraction, it was 20 persons, so contact tracing, you can find these persons. So these are the contact. Parish public health facilities. Remember, you're going to have your SPP, especially if you're in a larger property, but it will elevate to your parish public health facilities, the jamcovid19.moh.gov.jm. That's good to have. And of course, your 1888, One Love for your toll-free calling. Because of this, the 6 feet and the physical distancing, now you will have to limit the carrying capacity. And this is not just for transportation, this is throughout. So for restaurants, for hotels, any gathering, it has to be limited. So it is 70%. So whatever size vehicle that you have in terms of the carrying capacity, you're now required to carry 70% of that amount while we are living with COVID. So it's the 5-seaters that carry 3, 15-seaters that carry 10, 29-seaters that carry 20, 35-seaters, 25, 56-seaters that carry 40. And I know some persons have 7-seaters. How much do we take for our 7-seaters? Tell me the maths. 5, right. And all passengers are required to be seated. Well, this has nothing to do with COVID. That's always the case. Your passengers must be seated. So for the transport, to transport all passengers in the back. So because beside you, they would be still too close to you, so you transport passengers in the back. Do not allow passengers to sit next to the driver in the front seat, so let them stay at the back. There's also the physical distancing as it applies to family and friends in a group or strangers. So if it's family and friends, they're in one group, they don't necessarily have to maintain that 6 feet distancing because they're family. If it's strangers, no, then that is different. So if you have a group of family, they can be closer to each other with their family, but they still have to be 6 feet apart from strangers. So we have to bear that in mind. If it is family, you don't have to have that rigid 6 feet. So that's why I say that things, it's a little different. We just need to understand family or strangers, okay? Protection. Install plexiglass barriers with limited speaking holes between passengers and vehicle operators to allow for communication if possible. If possible, right? So we know that it's going to be expensive to install plexiglass, and we might have to import the glass and all of those. So if it is possible, there are other options. You're wearing your mask, you're keeping your distance away. All right? So these are suggestions that we're saying as to how to protect yourself and your customers, but we also have to look at affordability and feasibility. Wear masks at all times inside of the vehicle, both you and your guests, patrons and operators. Always wear your masks inside of the vehicle. Provide hand sanitizer to guests within the vehicle. So when you should have your hand sanitizers in the vehicle as well, so the guests can sanitize when they get in your vehicle. Utilize, for entry of the vehicle, utilize contactless entrances where possible. So we know some of you have automatic doors, so they don't have to touch the door. It could be you open the door and you leave it, or you man the door yourself so they don't touch the door. So it's one person touching that door, so at least the contact is less, because you know that you are the only person who touched that door. So if it's not automatic, we understand it. Leave the door open, or you man the door, you hold the door all the time, so they don't necessarily have to touch that door. Require all passengers to sit in accordance with physical distances. So when we are here on vacation, we want to have fun, we come here to have fun, we come here to enjoy ourselves. So we have to remind them also of the protocol. And that's why you have to remind persons of the protocols. You and I know, you have been in the industry long enough, when persons are on vacation sometimes, or brain gone on vacation too. So we know the standard, but we're in vacation mode. So we just have to gently remind them of the protocol and remind them that we're concerned about their health and safety as well as ours. When you're handling luggages, wear disposable gloves when handling your patrons' luggages. Now, each time you have to handle different luggages, then you need to change your gloves, because you could be passing on whatever you'd have from one contaminating to another. Dispose of gloves after each use if you have a vehicle that has an onboard bin or your garbage bin, but dispose of them, tighten the bin and dispose of it whenever you have a suitable garbage bin. Arrange for payment for transportation to be done through the hotel where possible to limit the exchange of cash. Allow for online reservation of hotel shuttle services where possible. And some of us, even as individuals, as sole proprietor, are operating online, right? Some of us. So we try to minimize the use of paper and cash and all of those things, because it's transmitted through those. Tipping again, minimize personal contact and avoid hugging and shaking hands of passengers upon entry or departure. And as Jamaicans, it's going to be a little hard for us, because we're accustomed to stretching the hand out and shaking hand, and visitors come and is your return guest, and they're going to hug you because they're glad to see you. But we have to be mindful. We have to just remember and practice physical distancing. All right? Also, if you stretch your hand out and a visitor doesn't, refuse to, we understand. Sometimes you might even do it. You just give them the elbow or give them the foot. But that's the new way that we're doing it now. So we just have to go along with it until if things change as we go along. Accept your tip. Continue accepting your tips. Continue accepting your cash. But sanitize or wash your hands immediately after receiving. Also, you practice routine sanitization and disinfect the vehicle throughout the hours of operation using your alcohol-based sanitizing spray. Because you're going to have different persons passing through your vehicles. So in the day, you're not going to be able to go to a car wash to get it totally sanitized or washed or shampooed. But throughout the day, you practice your sanitization with your spray or your alcohol liquid, but you do have your sanitization. So your door handles, after each person leave the vehicle, after you've dropped off your group, your door handles, your seats, your armrests, your steering wheel, your gear shift, your console, all of those things must be sanitized. You just spray as you go. Sanitize as you go. Because remember, when you leave at the end of the day, you're going home to your families. Sanitization should occur at a minimum at the following time. So beginning your shift, you sanitize your vehicle. I mean, we know that. We're always clean with our vehicle. But we just have to put a little bit more now than we normally do. All right? At the change of the shift, you sanitize. After carrying a group, before you're picking up another set of riders, you sanitize. So it's sanitization is a continuous process. You have to just always be sanitizing. And since COVID, we have been doing a lot of it. The amount of, each time we have to sanitize our hands, we have to be doing it. So it's now become a practice. It now becomes a practice that you have to sanitize. Wear a mask and gloves for the cleaning and sanitization of the vehicle. As I said before, dispose of the mask and the gloves, if it's a disposable mask. And if you have your garbage receptacle in your vehicle or external. Equip your vehicles with garbage cans if you have the size vehicle that garbage cans can suitably fit in there. If not, you have your garbage bags and you tie and you dispose of as soon as you can. Now, for rental vehicles or rent-a-car companies, in terms of your entrance and your reception, you also need to determine the capacity of the rental office based on the physical distancing. So when persons come into the office, you're still going to have your 6 feet physical distancing, and you post your signs listing the new capacity for the building. So everybody comes know what it is. All right? And you have your signs as well all along, just to remind the persons. If it's a small office, it might be that you maybe can't hold more than 1 or 2 persons in the office at a time, but you still have to try your best to maintain your 6 feet physical distancing. Utilize touchless online pickup and processing of rental vehicles to customers where possible to limit the exchange of clipboards, pens, pencils, and paperwork. So if you can do the process online and you limit the use of the paperwork and the pens and the pencils, do so. If it is that you don't have the technology to utilize online, what you can do is just sanitize each time. So when somebody uses a pen, you sanitize. So try have your sanitizers nearby that you can quickly sanitize if somebody uses a pen. If not possible, then you sanitize the pens and the pencils after use. Place markers on the floor to mark the physical distancing space while in any reception or waiting area. And even if persons have to wait on the outside, you also place the markers out there as well on the outside. And you put your signs up all along so persons can know, can be reminded, because everybody knows, but persons can be reminded of the physical distancing. All right, so try to minimize the amount of persons coming into the building. All you need to do is to ensure that we have that physical distancing. Arrange your furniture in the waiting room to allow for physical distancing. So keep the chairs and the benches and so at the 6 feet physical distance. If it is that it's an immovable furniture, it's one of those heavy furniture that's immovable, then you have to try to have persons sit in between so they don't sit closer to each other. And the signs are there as well just to remind persons of the physical distancing. Install or make available hand sanitizer in the entrance area. So in the entrance to your business, then try to have hand sanitizers available at the entrance. Require patrons to sanitize or wash their hands upon entrance to your business. And of course, have your signs so they'll see along. So we're looking at the business as well as the transport. For the transport, then you'd have your hand sanitizer in your vehicles also. So for the car rental, removed any shared or self-service refreshments, example, water, coffee, tea, from your reception area. The same for the magazine and the brochures, and also it could be that you could now have your brochures and so electronically, and so we go back to technology enablement. You could have them electronically, you could have it on a monitor running in your office, so while somebody's waiting in the reception area, they'll see the different attractions, they'll see all of those things, so they don't necessarily have to read or pull up a paper brochure. Mask cannot be overemphasized, that you wear masks at all times in your office. Sanitize your equipment regularly and continuously throughout the day, your computers, your desks, your chairs, your furniture, and wipe them down every 2 hours at a minimum. Somebody says, wow. Yes, wipe them down every 2 hours at a minimum. Remember, persons are coming in and out of your office. Your reception desk persons are coming and they're standing at the reception desk, so you have to sanitize as often as possible. Wear protective apparel when cleaning and sanitizing your masks and your gloves. Utilize your hands-free garbage cans as much as possible. Try not to touch. Use the step-on as much as possible with covers for no touch. Turn off your water source. If you have a water fountain, at this point you will need to turn it off because this is something that is a touchable area, has multiple touches, so you want to stay away from that, where people can touch. So turn it off and put signs there. It's closed until further notice. Because we're hoping that we will get back to the stage that we'll be utilizing those things. Wash your rental vehicle thoroughly, and this applies to all the vehicles. Wipe frequently touched surfaces such as your door handles, your steering wheels, all of those areas with your 60% or above alcohol before handing over to the next customer. So you sanitize all of those before you're handing over to the next customers. Steam or clean or wash all mats and upholstery within the vehicle prior to handing over to the next customer. And you rotate the vehicles where possible to allow for space between rentals. So if it is possible that if you have enough, and it's possible that you can rotate between 24 and 72 hours, so you sanitize and you leave it there for 24 and 72. We're not saying that you must, because you might not have sufficient vehicles to be able to do the rotation, right? But if you do have, then we suggest that you could do that. That's it for your transportation. What we shared here is, as I said, is just general. So you also developing your own protocol for how you operate. This is general information, and as I said, it's a framework for how you are going to be setting up your operations. As a sole proprietor, you have your hand sanitizers in your bus, your wipes, all of those things. So just how it is. Work with what you can afford. You can't afford a plexiglass at this time, have your masks and sanitize as much as possible.
While I understand the 6 feet distance, certainly, I don't know if in some vehicle you can really get 6 feet with 4 passengers in it, if they are not family, from what you say.
Well, sir, good afternoon. So the rule of thumb that you would best work for you is the 70% reduction. Because what's the average width of a vehicle?
Yeah.
It's about 6-7 feet. And you might have access probably 14 feet, so really only one person will be in the vehicle. For a smaller vehicle, a coach will be different. So the 70% reduction is what you should really aim for.
Because remember, some of us is still paying the bank.
Yes, that's why I'm saying work with the 70% reduction.
Okay, I can work with that, but want to hear from you. Thanks.
You're welcome, sir.
We enforce the guests, or we get them to wear masks if they don't want to.
So you're going to use your charms, because we know we contract carriage operators are some of the slickest, sweet-mouth talking persons we have in our tourism industry. So the onus is on you to use your powers of persuasion of how critical this thing is for them to do so.
Yes,
and your signage are going to be there. Where they're from, most of them, this is a reality of life that they're accustomed to. So you're not asking them to do something that they're unaccustomed to. But I understand some guests might be reluctant, but...
Well, most of the guests that we carry is American. You know American people, right?
But when you look on TV, aren't they wearing their masks?
Okay. Not all of them.
And I say not all of them, but
More
of them are wearing masks than Jamaicans wearing masks.
The president don't wear none, a lot of them don't wear it. Because you know American people have a lot of rights.
But you just make sure you protect yourself.
Of course.
You're going to implore them and use your powers of persuasion, but at the end of the day...
We can enforce the Americans, especially the American people them who don't want to wear masks. What we do if they don't want to wear it?
So we know you could probably sell ice to an Eskimo, and many of you can. So I'm saying it's a power of persuasion, because sometimes you can tell somebody to go to hell and they ask you for directions, but it's how you go about it.
Okay.
So, like how you can persuade and you upsell for your tours and you get the tips, the same way you're going to implore your guests and, give them the normal, warm, Jamaican, friendly greeting and explanation, and I'm sure many of them will understand. Always yours, because you come first and your family and the ripple effect of that.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
A question is, should we at any time sanitize the guests, or is there a preparation?
You can do that to the hands, similar to when you go into establishments here and they have spray sanitizer. So sure, if you're willing to sanitize their hands when they come in, because they'll be touching the bus too, so it's better for your vehicle.
All right, and as Mr. Hall said, American tourists, you put some alcohol or something on their hand and they start to burn and something like that. It's a suitcase that,
Well,
right?
they would have given you permission to do so, So, sir, may I sanitize your hands?
So we have to be careful what we are saying and doing.
It's just like CPR, If somebody falls and they are in distress and they are conscious, you ask them permission to do this, because in instances, persons have volunteered and done CPR and persons crack their ribs and the person turn around and sue them after they've saved their lives.
Exactly.
So we understand that there's a risk, so you ask, so may I sanitize your hands?
So could it be that it be mandatory at the hotels as to which we work, that every guest must be sanitized before entering transportation? Could it be enforced in that direction? And at the airports coming in?
I understand your concern, but...
could it be?
Well, where I would say the risk is, for the most part, persons might be allergic to certain things, yes? But it's not uncommon for people to be sanitizing nowadays. So if it's a case where you concocted your own sanitizer and the mix so happens to be greater than the 62% of a stronger base, then it might actually have much more adverse effects. But for the most part, with all the research being done and all these persons selling, these big companies selling hand sanitizers, it's not so known for it to have such adverse effect. It's something that evaporates very quickly because a high alcoholic content, so it's sanitizing, evaporates very quickly. So if it's a case that person knows, they would already know that they are sensitive to sanitizers and probably have their own type. Even if they sanitize a hand, they could have been in the bus, they cough and sneeze into their hand and they touch surfaces, so the window, the glass, so you have to clean your glass down. A person's fall asleep in the vehicle, face on the glass, so you just clean and sanitize all those contact surfaces that could have possibly be contaminated. So I wouldn't stress too much about their hands.
One more question. You didn't answer the question I asked about make it mandatory for the hotels to sanitize them before they enter the vehicle. And also, before I sit down, one more thing. Could we refuse that guest to take him in the transportation because of his sneezing or coughing or running nose or wiping off the nose constantly?
Absolutely.
Without being sued or without being thrown off the property of the hotels? These are questions that are very important.
Absolutely.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Also, that is why the protocols is not just for us. This information is shared to all, and that is why we say have their signs and have them knowing as well. Because when you refuse them now, because you would have shared this information and they are aware, then you can now refuse them. All right. So the information is not just for us; it's for everybody, and that's why we need to have our signs and the protocols shared, so they know the protocols too. You know.
Yes, and bearing in mind your role to be played in this whole thing. So if you come across a guest that is in that condition, the one of hotline contact the Ministry of Health, because we need to isolate this person to ensure that they don't endanger other persons. So you have your part to play. So those throw him away and get away with him. Keep him in contact, get somebody on him, So, sir, or if you, I'm not going to say this, but then it's your responsibility to seek attention, medical attention, for that guest that is so obviously showing symptoms.
You mentioned in your presentation that Jamaica has one of the best, provide the best hospitality, and our returns are greater than any other Caribbean country. I do agree with the sanitizer, the face mask, and the gloves for our tourists. My challenge is where you mentioned that plastic glass to be installed in the vehicle. Don't you think that will take away from the hospitality and the service that we provide?
Not at all. Not at all.
Why I say that, and let me just give you from based on my experience personally, traveling international just to see. A lot of the times, it's popular in New York and some of those states where they have that glass installed, protecting the guests from the driver. 90%, or let me just use it, 90% of the time you don't communicate with the driver. And our job as tourist provider and drivers, our job depends on upselling. So when we carry a guest, we can sell them another tour destination and we can sell them an attraction or so forth if we're taking them from a hotel. With that plastic glass, it doesn't provide that kind of synergy where you feel like communicating or conversing with the guest to get that other sale for that other day, if so be the case.
Well, a microphone could, the thing is, this is not going to be an airtight, sealed vacuum that you're in, for starters. And when you travel overseas and you see these drivers there, it's not necessarily the same protection. It's more physical protection.
But let me just give you an example as well. You go to the bank, right? And there's somebody over a counter with a glass in front of you. You go there, you cash, you do whatever you're doing.
The sound is diminished.
If someone is around walking around asking for your support or support, you're more able to communicate with that person to give them all the details versus that person beyond the glass where you just go to do a service and leave.
Most operators that would have been contract operators in previous years would have known that it was mandatory in vehicles, coasters and up, to have PA systems. So this plexiglass thing would be something that would be more feasible in a larger vehicle where they would have the PA system. But at the same time, if you read the document, it says we're feasible. Okay. So we wouldn't expect to put it in your vaccine.
It's being suspected that AC...
Sir, can you remove your mask and speak since you're there alone? I can't hear you.
Yeah, the air conditioner in the vehicle is suspected to transmit the COVID-19 around in the vehicle. And tourism will depend on AC. How do we deal with that?
Well, the no AC thing is recommended. Many of the vehicles, based on how they're set up, they don't have windows for this ventilation purpose. And I can imagine loading a vehicle for 20, 30 minutes, midday, August, it'll be stifling. So the document also speaks to the consistent, proper cleaning of air filters and vents to aid in the air quality. So it does indicate that air conditioning units can be used, but you might have, it might be an early morning pickup or an evening pickup. And it's cool. The persons are coming from a winterland, they come to the tropics, they want warmth. So, if possible, cooler climate, early morning, late evening, use the natural air. But some buses don't have any windows. So, air conditioned units have to be used. But the vents and the air filters clean to increase the air quality. So, the document does speak to that also. It's not a cookie cutter thing, so we have to be very practical with it, folks. We have to be very practical with it. So where you can't work and it's not feasible, you have to work around it, increase the cleaning and sanitizing process to make it as safe as possible for yourself and others, of course.
Okay.
You're welcome.
What do you do while driving and the guests remove the mask? How do you deal with that?
You kindly ask them could you replace it? And I just say, we said practically, sometimes it's difficult to wear it consistently. You might be going, it's a 2-hour trip, but from here, everywhere is roughly an hour or 1.5. So I recommend a rest stop and they might get some air, but you have to implore them, like the gentleman said before. Use your powers of persuasion to ask them to keep their protective equipment on. And if they flatly refuse, the one thing you have to do is ensure that you are protected. The Prime Minister said our number one asset is our people, you know, so we are concerned about you. That is why this session is being held, to protect you, and we with knowledge that you can protect yourselves.
Okay, thanks.
I see you have thermometers selling outside. Is it legal to take a guess temperature?
I don't know that it is illegal.
I don't know.
But why would it be legal? It's monitoring. Because what we would recommend when people make the reservations, we have asked some of the other players, they make a booking at a hotel, you give the guest a heads up, basically. If you had a hotel under construction, you give them prior notice. So on your trip, you'll be subject to constant monitoring and evaluation for these things. So we hope that everybody would make their guests aware of what to expect, travel agents what to expect on the ground. They live in an environment where these kind of things are done also, so it's not unusual for a lot of them to be subject to these kind of things. And as I say, selling ice to Eskimo is how you do it. We have charm, we have powers of persuasion, we can get things done that persons might have otherwise not be so willing to do.
And a follow-up to that, what or how much of a sensitization program does the government have in place overseas for people who are going to be visiting the island? Or is the onus left on us?
As I said, it is encouraged for the persons that the accommodations making their bookings to advise guests what to expect on a trip, travel agents what to expect. So I can't speak to the extent of JTB's program on that, but that is what we recommend to our persons. Because we realize that not only us Jamaicans sell, we have other wholesalers that do the selling for us. So I'm sure that communication will be made. And that's why the protocol document is shared far and wide. We have had feedback internationally about it as well, and great reviews actually, that we have quite a robust document that is inspiring confidence, which is what we want, to have destination assurance, the comfort to know that when the gate opens, we want Jamaica to be the first place to go. Our profile in the pandemic is very good. Our death rate is relatively low. One death is too much, but in comparison to other places, we have a great profile. So we want to maintain that. Hence these rigorous protocols to minimize any unwanted, undesired effects.
Okay, thanks. Just that the onus should not be left on us.
Sorry?
I'm just saying the onus should not be left on us I mean, the pandemic has been around for
months.
5 months? Around about. So more or less people know, but positive reinforcement of the information prior to
absolutely agreed
can't be overstated.
Absolutely agreed. And you know how our minister is, he is a great advocate, and when he gets on the soapbox, he goes. So I'm sure this will be a part of the package in selling us this resilience that we're putting forward, hence even the resilience corridor and everything. So I am absolutely sure this is actually our greatest marketing tool right now. This document is our greatest marketing tool right now because many places don't have such a document.
I just need to know how we're going to deal with the people coming off the ships. Are they going to be tested at the port before they get to the bus, or the onus is upon us to test them ourselves from the port?
Testing, I don't know if any testing taking place, but the
temperature.
The checks, but they were employing the checks. Same applies.
So
the same rigorous testing applies because this thing is asymptomatic for a lot of the time. So you might leave home this morning and you're feeling fine, and by midday you don't feel so lovely and you're coming on with a cold sweat. So it's a short period of time. So the constant checking, we're empowering you to check. Everybody is a security guard in this pandemic, and we all have to be our brothers keepers and watch out for everybody and constant monitoring and checking. Everybody is a safety point person, even if not the designated one. Well, if the companies would have that, for the independent persons, you are your own safety point person. Familiarize yourself with the document, have the contact info, and know what to do if you deem somebody to be displaying symptoms.
But when they are disembarking from the ship, will their temperature be taken? Coming off the vessel.
Mm-hmm. Well, somebody asked that of the airport it should be the airport that should be doing it, and they shouldn't be doing it. But even if it is done on the ship, Sir Brooks, I would still wouldn't you want to be sure?
Yes.
Because suppose somebody missed or didn't do the temperature correctly and they had an elevated temperature, but then they come to you 15, 20 minutes later and their temperature is 90 degrees. You're going to say, oh, I'm not going to check because they checked on the ship. Did you know that they're diligent? You have to be your own gatekeeper.
Okay, thank you.
It is best to use the natural air. Or
Natural, yes, is best. Natural is best.
Thank you.
Is it a requirement for each tour driver to have a temperature machine?
It is certainly recommended. So how would you know what the guest temperature is?
So is it a requirement?
So it would be implicitly implied that you need to have a device to be able to take people's temperature. Yes.
So we thank you so much for coming out today, and just ask you to please be safe, practice safety measures, and also ensure that you extend that to your customers, your guests.